Hello, listeners, and welcome to the In-Game Boss Program, Saturday morning edition. Or if you're listening to us later, it's still Saturday morning edition because this is a very special episode for you as we represent our old school shows that we used to watch based on Fox Kids only. And we got a bunch of cool ideas that we have on here, but I am your host and your host of this Saturday morning cartoon program that you are listening to right now, Jeremy, aka your retro activist, aka your in-game boss, aka I did get my stimulus check now, so I'm good. Yeah. And over here, joining me on this Saturday morning episode is Mr. Jaron,
aka the Grumpy Bear, aka the Evil of Aku, aka rest in peace, Ranger Roger. I'll take up your mantle just for this episode.
Oh, I forgot about Ranger Roger. Oh
yeah,
my God.
For those who aren't from Oklahoma or weren't in Oklahoma anything during that time, Ranger Roger, that was a Fox Kids Club, all that. Yeah.
Yep. So why are we talking about this? There's no anniversary or anything about it. It's just something that I wanted to do that would be funny to talk about and whatnot. People from, if you grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, even a little bit in the late 90s, because it did continue on, but that whole lineup definitely changed a lot during those years. I think it started wrapping up around 97, I want to say.
Yeah,
that's when Kids WB started kind of taking over.
Yes. WB and Cartoon Network.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they started taking over. Even like Nicktoons were still hitting their stride. They were making it all the way through. They always had new shows and stuff like that. But Fox had so many varieties and so many license to a lot of shows. Some shows were Fox only brand. Some shows were Warner Brothers brand before, Kid WB decided to spin off and do their own thing, right? And so,
yeah. Animaniacs.
Mm-hmm. But for people that are listening to, if you're younger, you were born in 2000 stuff, this might be a little fun lesson for you that, as you grew up watching Cartoon Network and maybe still Nickelodeon, Nicktoons, you always had these cartoon blocks from a certain amount of time to another that kind of had these block of, all these shows. And Cartoon Network is basically all block cartoons, all nonstop. But now that has changed for them since, you got from early morning to Toonami to Adult Swim now. So that's the big change for them with their own little cartoon blocks. But back in the day, it was either Fox in the morning or Nickelodeon. And if you didn't have Cartoon Network, then that's basically all you got for the morning, and everything else was just regular TV shows, Yeah. And so I remember that I would switch between Fox and Nicktoons depending on the show. Like if there wasn't a good show on Nicktoons or on Nicktoons I wasn't interested, I go to Fox. Fox didn't have anything, I go to Nick. If I had Disney, sometimes I'll hit the Disney afternoon, but that was more on the weekdays to me, more than on the weekends. But Cartoon Network kind of swept that up once they started getting into their flow, like owning all the Hanna-Barbera cartoons and all that kind of stuff. You would go there after everything else was done on your main Fox and Nickelodeon shows and whatnot. But we're going to talk about Fox only on this one because Fox had, to me, the most different experimental cartoons on there. When you watch Nickelodeon, you watch it okay, that makes sense. It's Nickelodeon. That fits Nickelodeon. But Fox was there was a lot of crazy shows. You had a lot of crazy shows from anime to straight serious shows to straight goofy shows. And I remember I always get up too early or too late to watch the shows I really care about. You had your shows like Casper the Ghost that would come the earliest, but I never wake up early enough to watch it. I always catch it in the 8 or 9 realm, so I would catch shows from there and down. Because you notice on the shows that your serious shows come more towards the end, like Batman and Spider-Man. They were more towards the end of the block instead of the beginning, And you could tell definitely, Jaron, and I'll let you talk about it, is you notice a lot of shows got moved around a lot based on the popularity of okay, this time slot's better for this show and stuff like it move on. So some shows just disappear because they just didn't do very well or their show was running out, so they became reruns, so they push them up to the earlier times. So these other other shows can get their light. So what do you what's your thoughts on Saturday morning cartoons with Fox Kids?
Well, two things first. One, For those who may be observant, yes, this is a cough drop. Trying to maintain my voice. 2, I do know, guys, there was ABC and CBS cartoons and everything. I will acknowledge that. But, we're going to focus on Fox, the more diverse, crazy cartoon. So I know Back to the Future was a cartoon and Sports Stars and all that stuff and Captain N, but we're Fox kids. I do remember my heyday of Fox Kids was 1990, 1989, 1990, because Fox, I think they came around in like the 1988, 1989, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then 1990 all the way through probably 98, 99, because by then I had cable and I was checking out Cartoon Network, and Cartoon Network was starting to roll out their Cartoon Network originals, Powerpuff and Dexter's Lab,
Johnny
like
Bravo.
That. Johnny Bravo, yes, yes. I didn't really get into Nicktoons too much after the mid 90s. Like I was Real Monsters, Doug,
Hey Arnold.
Hey Arnold, Ren and Stimpy. And Ren and Stimpy then got moved to Saturday nights during SNCC. So, but I do have fond memories of Fox. X-Men. That was my dad and I's jam. He made sure if I was sleeping, if I slept in, he woke me up for X-Men, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "Get up, X-Men, let's go." I was like, "Okay." So
just to name some shows that were on Fox Kids that maybe people forgot or it did exist, because some shows were on Fox first, and then later on you saw them come to Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon.
Yep.
Like for example, the cartoon Team of Ninja Turtles, I don't think was ever a Fox show, but there was a live action Team of Ninja Turtles that was on Fox.
The Next Mutation.
Yeah. So it's interesting where that went back and forth. Even they had some live action stuff like, Big Bag Beetleborgs, VR Troopers.
Yes. Power
Rangers. Yeah. So they did have some live action stuff up here. But your main ones that they advertised the most was like Bobby's World.
Yeah.
Tom and Jerry Kids, which I watch a lot of. Tom and Jerry Kids.
I like that.
With the spinoff with Droopy Dog and the Detectives.
Yes.
Sam and Max, also one of my favorites. That was towards the end.
Yeah. That did not get enough exposure.
No, and it was very adult kind of cartoon. If you really pay attention to the innuendos, there was a lot of innuendos in there.
Oh yes.
Beetlejuice, another show that I loved a lot. It was big. It did well in there, but I honestly think it was bigger on Nickelodeon. It got more views on Nickelodeon because they run it more there. Tasmania.
Come to Tasmania.
Yep. My favorite show on that whole network, and no matter what, I would always make time to watch it, was Eek the Cat. That was my show. I love Eek the Cat.
I remember that. I got annoyed at Eek the Cat because some things just didn't make sense. I couldn't disconnect from reality sometimes watching Eek the Cat. Same with Bobby's World. I watched them, but I think that was my first exposure at hate watching.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, Bobby, in my household, you'd have your ass whooped.
Right. I wasn't I wasn't a huge fan of Bobby's World either, because, I don't know, like, it was interesting because he was a kid that went into his own imagination, and he was trying to take his mind out of reality of, like, what's going on behind the scenes with his family and all that stuff. But Eat the Cat was so over the top and just random. That's what I liked about it. And you have this cat that is so positive, dealing with so much chaos around him. Being with a fat chick, everybody's telling she's fat, and he just plays it off like, didn't notice. Like, he's so happy. Also dealing with, the Fuzzy Wuzzy Bears cartoon people that were like, you had that, what, all the bears were positive. They were Care Bears, but one was positive, while you had this other bear that was just like the most realistic one. Is like, are you kidding me? Like, yeah, like, we're gonna die. What are you guys so happy about? That part, to the point where
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, Sharky, the shark dog, that was the most random thing. And then of course you had to later on get them to have share with another show created by the creator, the terrible thunder lizards. You know, and you had the lizards that were out there trying to kill the humans, and meanwhile you had these two humans working on creative new inventions as they went. So Eat the Cat stand out a lot because it was just so funny, and they made fun of pop culture without you really knowing it. I remember one of my favorite episodes where Eek had to, I think had to be a ninja to go save his girlfriend or something like that, and he was about to die, and then he gets rescued by Fabio. Fabio comes in, and I remember this because they're just making fun of Fabio. Because Fabio's like, hey, anybody hurts Eek, they're got to deal with me, Fabio. And I remember all the dishes run away like, oh my God, you know, they just run away because they're like so scared of him. And it's so random. You have to really rewatch that show to get it. Other than that, you had the Batman anime series that just soar. A lot of people.
Oh yeah. That started the DC animated universe as we knew it through the 90s and part of the 2000s.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember this being on Saturday morning. It might have been for a while. Then it went to weekdays. But Tiny Toons, one of my favorite shows.
Yep. Which is coming back.
Yes. I'm probably one of the other people outside. I enjoy Tiny Toons more than Animaniacs. But I love the fact that Babs Bunny talks for Dot in Animaniacs. So I love that connection. And so you mentioned X-Men, so we already got that out of the way. Space Goofs, that was a weird show. I don't know if you remember Space Goofs. There were these aliens that came down. They just lived in this house, and they were trying to act like they were like trying to be human, but it just didn't work out. It was a weird show. It was a weird show.
I don't think I ever watched it.
Yeah, it was a weird show. It came around like at 9:30, I think. It was weird.
Oh yeah, I had already got my day started. Once X-Men was off, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah, and then the iconic one that was up there with Batman was Spider-Man.
Yes.
The show that never got a proper ending.
I mean, yeah, when you say proper, I agree with you because they tried to put it into Spider-Man Unlimited, and that was trash.
Mm-hmm.
Now, point of order, a lot of these shows, as you mentioned, came on Saturdays, but sometimes we had the benefit of having the weekday afternoon reruns.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I remember watching. I didn't watch Batman on Saturdays, but I did catch it on the weekday afternoons. That was my jam. I got home from school just in time to catch Batman, or the end of Tiny Toons and the start of Batman. Yeah,
and then later on things changed. Anime kind of was getting a trial over here so much that Fox kind of changed stuff in the anime. Like, people forgot that, like, Escaflowne was a show on there. Sailor Moon was on there. One Piece was on there. And it got mutilated.
Hacked up.
It got hacked up, mutilated. They had to change a lot of stuff. Like, Luffy had a sucker. He was always having a sucker stuff. The voice acting was terrible in that show.
Yeah.
But that was their trial. Shaman King was on there.
Card Captor
Sakura. That was on there, and then that moved to Kids WB later.
Yeah. Was Pokemon on Fox?
No.
Okay, that was Kids WB.
Yeah, it was Kid WB, and then Cartoon Network after that.
Yeah, and they butchered Pokemon a bit, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, but there was a lot of trial and error because you can tell that it started going downstream when it started getting more live action and then a lot more action based with really there wasn't more comedies. There was more action stuff. Because you even had, G.I. Joe Sigma was a show on there.
Boo. Boo.
Yeah, that was on there. They really went more action and just kind of ruined what made Fox Kids. And what I love about Fox Kids, it was, bro, a lot of randomness. There was just a lot of shows that like, let's throw it at the wall and see what happens. If it hits, it hits. Mm-hmm. If it misses, it misses. And let's just see what happens.
They let the showrunners experiment.
Yeah. And then from there, just kind of what do kids like? And we'll just focus on that and nothing else. So, But what does that have to do with our today's episode of the In-Game Boss podcast? Oklahoma's #1 podcast. So
I saw that.
Thank you. Had a peanut in my throat. Anyways, so we wanted to do our own edition for that with video games. Let's say if the Saturday morning cartoons was one block of video games now that we either grew up with, they're out now, stuff that we honestly think like, this would be a good cartoon. This would be good. So the way we're doing this is we're setting this up as a block. We're going to tell you the time that this show starts and what the show is, and talk about why we think this is the show. Now, I don't know. Maybe we could talk about why we think it fits in that slot, in our own opinion, why we will put that first. But before this, you know, we talked about our picks, and then we decided, like, what slot do we want to put our shows in as we went. And then after that, we'll follow by a surprise thing after each one of our picks. A little commercial, fun commercial stuff to put behind it.
It's not Saturday morning without commercials.
Yeah. So, you know, and we'll try to, I'm going to have footage showing our picks and stuff like that. So, you know, some B-roll up in this. So, hopefully you'll just sit back and, you know, enjoy the ride and, you know, enjoy the things that we talked about and whatnot. So, with that, we start with 7 o'clock a.m. because that's mostly where Fox Kids start. You could probably argue it started out earlier. If it were cartoons earlier, it wasn't part of the block. It was just some bonus cartoons, maybe at the beginning. We've seen that before.
Exactly.
And so
they weren't. We're assuming this is an actual cartoon programming block. Mm-hmm. And to additional criteria for what we're putting in, these have to be games that have never been cartoons before. So no Mario, no Legend of Zelda. You know, probably a bunch of things that Nintendo did because Captain N did it. Mm-hmm. So these are all original, never been a cartoon.
Yeah, and just to throw some more out there, Mega Man. Mega Man's not on this list. You can't put Tomb Raider now because Tomb Raider just got announced as we talk about this.
Yeah, I had to change my list.
Yeah. So there's a bunch. If you look it up, there's actually quite a bunch of video game cartoons out there. So, but there's more video games, so there's a lot to pick from that we think that fits
so
this.
many.
So, starting for 7 o'clock in the morning, I think 7 o'clock is the super early time. You know, for me, I try to wake up that early, but I don't because I stay up too late. So, most of the time, you put a cartoon up there that is kind of just there. And if it does well, good for them. Then we'll move you down. But until you prove yourself, you know, it goes up there. Because that's where Bobby World was. Bobby World was real early in the morning. And, you know, Bobby World was a good slot up there because, like, I don't think it would have been a big hit in the afternoon. I think people wanted something different. So, by World. And my game...
They wanted something good.
Yeah. So, this game is a game I grew up with. Granted, if you think it's good or not, I don't care. But I think it'd be a great cartoon in its own way. And that's Rocking Cats on the NES. You'll notice he's on the cover of the game. He is a cat wearing a suit. Look kind of jazzy. Kind of looks like he's like going to the jazz club. And he's standing on a dog's head. So it's basically dog and cats. And he's basically, in the game, he's basically saving his girlfriend. And he rocks a gun that shoots a punching glove. So, yeah. And through the level, he uses that as a weapon to hurt, to beat his enemies or to swing on, basically, Gatling hook himself across stuff, you know, swing around.
On a commando style.
Yeah. So the way I would do the show would be basically, you know, him and his jazzy cats, and they, you know, they're always doing jazz, but then some adventure happens. They have to go do something, deal with the dogs that are like causing trouble and whatnot. They're not like heroes. They're basically there to kind of protect their neighborhood from the dogs doing bad things. And, you know, the girl can be captured a couple of times and whatnot, but I think it'd just be funny and goofy in this sort of way because we don't really get a lot of shows with cats other than like Samurai Pizza Cats. And so, so we don't really get a lot.
SWAT Cats.
SWAT Cats was a good show. I forgot about that. I take back what I said. So there is some cat shows, but I guess Cat and Jazz hasn't been set up yet, I guess. So I think this would be just a funny, goofy show to start out. You know, see where it goes. It probably won't last that long. Probably about like 8 or 10 episodes because I don't know how long you would really do Cat and Jazz and dogs and all that kind of stuff. But it'd be interesting to see what they would do with that. And the fact that this game was published by Atlas at the time was kind of interesting too. So that's my 7 o'clock. So
that sounds like something that would be in a Hanna-Barbera block back in the
it would be
60s, 70s, and a little bit of the 80s.
And there you go. We got Top Cat. Top Cat?
Yep.
Yeah.
Top Cat.
Yeah. And like almost every Hanna-Barbera, you'd be surprised that there's not a lot of episodes in their program. They're mostly one season. There's just a lot of episodes in those seasons, but other than that, they're just a rerun. Like I was actually doing research on Scooby-Doo and looking at all the knockoffs. They only get one season. But there's so many reruns, you just think that like the show just goes on and on. But so probably Rockin' Cat will probably be only one season, and that's it. It'll be an open and closed case.
Yeah, I mean, really, depending on it, Rockin' Cats, I guarantee you get 30 episodes.
You think
They'd
so?
Order 30 episodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. They'd be changing the gun from looking like a gun to looking like something that could turn into a toy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with that, my Rocking Cat cartoon would be brought to you by Moon Shoes. Because if you can't afford trampolines, at least you got something to make you feel like that you're on the moon. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I guess.
Make those downstairs apartment neighbors rue the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Who likes just hopping to school with Moon Shoes? Because I never seen that in my life. I have never seen Moon Shoes live. Never seen them in my life. Like, seen them in the commercials. Never seen them up close.
I have. A kid was wearing them. He was a cool kid. A little too big for those Moon Shoes. He had a few bounces and then bop, his feet popped through them. So he was just wearing some oversized broken Moon Shoes home. So, jeez. Or goodness, if you try and run in those and forget you have them on, you got a rolled ankle.
But that's my 7 o'clock. But coming up next at 7:30, we have
Stardew Valley.
Oh. Why did I not see that coming? The game that you gave a 10 in our last season episode.
Hey, That's not my fault that you just don't like growing crops and exploring caves. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't make me create a whole theme song for this show. But I think Stardew Valley would work. It's especially, they don't have to do the pixelated style, but they could do a early morning. It's a simpler animation style, more reminiscent of the 80s. And they could have, various adventures in the town. You have whatever farmer and his friendships with so and so and so and so, and then you take one of the monsters or a couple of the monsters that you fight in the cave and make characters out of them. And they're constantly trying to do stuff. They mess with the crops or steal the livestock or mess up the festival or whatever. And it's 20 to 23 minutes of solving whatever mystery and bolstering friendships along the way, and you learn something.
It almost feels like you could do each episode is basically a bunch of citizens doing something, and they interact that relates to the episode. You know what I mean? Like, you have the girl that needs to go to the shop to buy something, and she runs out of something, and then that person is connected to that, and they go do something, and then all that. It almost reminds me, if you remember the old cartoon. I used to love this cartoon, actually. I thought it was pretty clever in its own way. I'm probably butchering the name, but I think it's like the little town of Rich or Scary or something like that. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember it is something scary. I think it's Rich or Scary, but I do remember that.
Yeah.
The worm and the apple and...
Yeah, so like it's basically the town is the characters and all the people are in it. So you're getting these little stories from everybody that kind of intertwine in that way. That's what I see Stardew Valley doing, and I think that'd be a cool idea like that.
Like a kid's Pulp Fiction.
You're right.
I think it was the Busy World of Richard.
That's what it is. Yeah, Busy World of Richard Scary. Yeah, I like that show. So yeah.
Yeah, I could see that with Stardew Valley, or at the very least, we had multiple seasons of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. This could just predate that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's Stardew Valley. And Stardew Valley is brought to you by I gotta have my Corn Pops. Yes, Corn Pops. The cereal that will make you catastrophize ever running out of them because they are that addicting. Corn Pops. Every puffed piece of corn has a little bit of crack in it to get you addicted. That's why you start having those thoughts.
Warning, do not put them in your microwave. They will not pop like popcorn.
No, they will not. No, they will not.
Oh, man. Yeah. They look like they're made out of plastic at first, and you're like, should I eat them? Is this safe?
If you eat them dry, it almost sounds like you're chewing styrofoam peanuts.
Oh. That's disgusting even hearing that.
But when you put them in milk, and this is before I learned that a little bit of milk goes a long way, you have like 5 minutes to eat them all, or they get soggy as hell because those puffed corn just soaks that milk up.
It almost sounds like honeycomb. Honeycomb pig. Man. Yeah.
I will say I loved honeycomb, but during the whole heyday of various cereals, the cereal I got was a cereal that fit within a budget. And most of the time, honeycomb did not.
Okay,
Corn Pops did.
No lie. I have honeycombs in my kitchen right now that I just wanted to try again, and I realized that they are they're not fun to eat anymore. you know, because like you can't. It takes too much room in your bowl. You know, it's just it's too big for its own good.
Yeah.
So
pour out like 10 honeycombs.
Yeah, and they take a while to chew up. So I'm like, I'm not doing these anymore. I'll take the Captain Crunch, cut the roof of your mouth over these. So, to swing it back to 8 o'clock. So you got Rockin' Cat and you got Stardew Valley. Now you hit the shows that are kind of more the fun stuff. So I want to hit the fun stuff at 8 with Shantae and the half genie. So but basically you're genie. So Shantae is known for rocking her hair. She's a genie and she can turn to different costumes, and she's basically a guardian of basically a town on the beach or on the seaside coast or whatever. Shantae the genie is such a fun game. I love that game. I love the ideas that you're traveling around, you get these abilities. It doesn't have so much a Metroidvania, but it feels like a Metroidvania in some sort of way. As you're going to each castle to figure out, or each area to figure out something, but you're not backtracking or anything like that. But, you get the skills that help you get through that course of the level. And it's perfect for a cartoon to me, because every day can be an adventure. Since she's in charge of this village, she has to just deal with the chaos that comes across, just like in the game. Her rival is a pirate girl.
Risky Boots.
Yeah. So you
and
have
the character names are perfect.
Yes. So you have to deal with that kind of chaos, and sometimes they might have to work together to deal with some things. On top of you can have her trying to balance her skills of her hair and her abilities, from turning into a monkey, an elephant, to all this stuff, and all her friends. It can almost be more, they could be poking fun at themselves of like, why do you fight with your hair? You're a genie. You don't grant any wishes. A half genie. You don't grant any wishes. She
always says, I'm a half genie.
Yeah. And I think it's just be funny. Like, if you ever play the game, the dialogue's funny, the character's hilarious. It looks like a cartoon. Like, even the better ones. Like, the better ones that Way Forward does later on with like better budget and whatnot, it looks like a cartoon show.
Yes.
So, and if you even watch like the newest one in the opening, it's the intro is directed by Studio Trigger, the people that brought you, Kill la Kill, all those kind of shows. So like, yeah, Shantae I think is a perfect way to cartoon. This would be a great way for that show to really bounce out. So what's your thoughts?
I agree. Shantae is definitely one of those adventure cartoon with comedy, like adventure comedy.
Yeah.
It is going to be wacky adventures, various locales. You have a ton of different characters to choose from. I remember like the professor, or is it her dad or just a professor?
Just a professor, I believe.
Okay, yeah, the crazy inventions. He could get into trouble. Her friends, Roddy Tops, the zombie girl, Risky Boots, but like almost like all the female characters in Shantae.
Yeah,
even if they're opposing views, they still kind of also get along. Like, yeah, it's almost in a way, it's kind of like positive for the ladies. Like, hey, you don't have to agree with that girl, but you don't have to run her down. So, because, of course, with Saturday morning cartoons, especially early 90s, cartoons had to have some type of educational message or something.
Yeah, and another plus side of this, sadly enough, I might be sounding biased, but Fox Kids, it felt like it was more for boys than girls, at least at the beginning, right? Like, they had some girls in the shows and whatnot, but it's mainly focused on the boys.
Yeah. Heavily marketed.
Yeah, so this would be a great for the girls. On top of boys can like it too. So yeah, that's one thing. And that's brought to you by Etch-a-Sketch, because you can etch a sketch until someone's a dick and erase it.
Oh, that's the best tagline.
I have one of those, and there's a reason why I guess I'm better with the controller now, because one does up and one does left and right. So drawing them was such a challenge. And then, then someone's like, oh, that's cool. Start over. And you're like,
yeah, you're done with this.
Yeah. So, that's mine. So, but coming after that at 8:30, we have.
At 8:30, we have Kid Chameleon.
Oh my gosh. Now, tell me how this is going to work.
Okay, so you already know the basis for Kid Chameleon. He's got to go into the kids have been disappearing from this arcade, and he's the best gamer around, and he's got to go into that world and find out what's going on. And he gets trapped by such and such enemy, and it's almost Inspector Gadget like, because he never really, or he always comes close but never really catches claw. So Kid Chameleon, you have 100 stages or whatever. That's more than enough for episodes of, he turns into this, he turns into a football player, a rhino, a samurai, whatever. And because he can't carry the show by himself, unfortunately, he just can't. You got to have a cast of characters. So you have maybe he has two friends that join with him from time to time.
Maybe he rescues them on the way, right? He rescues them and then they become part of the cast, right?
He rescues them in the first and second episode. Mm-hmm. Rescues one in the first episode, rescues another in the second or third episode. And they're running around and they're basically fighting enemies and trying to find a way out of the arcade. Now, even though the game itself is 100 levels, the show, I give it 35 to 45 episodes.
Really?
Yeah,
before
it's going to be one of those
boring?
that people have really got. It's going to end on a weird cliffhanger where nobody ever gets an answer.
That's so mean. That's so mean. So basically, it would take place all in the video game, never back to reality, right? Because the goal is to rescue everybody and then make it out.
Yes,
right?
Yes. Now we can obviously tease bits and pieces where, here's a way out. Oh, well, Kid Chameleon, he's so cool, but he also learns to be humble or something like that, or be selfless. So he lets someone else, some other kid who he rescued, escape or whatever. We have a bunch of close calls,
Okay.
So he could continue with the mission.
It'd be interesting with how the costumes would implement, how each episode would be. How he runs into the costumes and whatnot. And on top of that, I'd be
very new costumes too.
Say what?
The game only had eight or 9 different helmets. If that, you can make more.
I feel it almost felt like it's way more than 8. But you could. I think you're right. It's just gosh, my favorite one was the Jason one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure on cartoons they probably changed that.
Especially the tank one. Where you're this demon army leader and you're riding this tank. That was weird. No, I like that idea. The one level I would love them to do the cartoon episode is the one where you have the sharp mechanism chasing you down and you have to get through the level as fast as you can. That would be fun just to walk in and do that. It almost feels like the old Toonami show Reboot, if you remember that show.
Yes, I remember Reboot.
So you have to make it to the end or the game reboots itself or something like that, right?
They were all different programs. It was like Tron meets. It was like Tron, but for the 90s.
Yeah. So Kid Chameleon could be very similar to that in that way. Yeah. That'd be a cool idea. The only thing would be so weird at the beginning is just who made an arcade this big? For the virtual reality? Yeah. It'd be kind of weird, but it'd be funny.
VR, what the hell?
Right?
Yeah.
It's almost like you have this kid that's really good at arcade game and they're like, hey, kid, you want to see what a real game is? And they go in this room. It's where's the game? You're in the game. And then they just blast him in there and they're like, good luck coming back out.
Oh, goodness. That almost sounds like some narration for a Goosebumps show.
Right? Which that was also on Fox for people that didn't know.
Yes,
yeah. Also,
had a creepy opening. So.
Mm-hmm. So
but yeah, I dig that with Kid Chameleon. And of course, you got to have, I think to voice the kid, Jaleel White, he can do his best Sonic impression.
Jaleel White from
Yes.
doing the voice for Sonic.
Yes.
Wow.
Like, no way. With the whole
way.
cool shades and everything. Yeah. He's like, whatever, man.
I can see that. All right. And what is your show brought to you by?
Kid Chameleon is brought to you by GAC. Because nothing says fun like having a nameless, colorless, or sometimes colorless, sometimes odorless bucket of slime in your house for your mom to clean up.
And if you're not having too much fun, you can make fart noises with it.
Yes.
Use the container.
just because your hands are probably small enough to fit in a little cup, just jam them in there. And there you go.
Yeah, dude. God, I think my parents hated me for having GAC because, like, that thing can get everywhere if you're not paying attention.
Yes, yes. I used it. I used it with my action figures as some sort of like enemy or pit trap.
Oh, brilliant, my friend, brilliant! Like he's the Blob.
Yes. It was like, oh, feed you to my special pet. The Dr. Mindbender made. Goodbye, Joes.
All right, and coming at 9:00 is my big hitter. Out of my list, this is the big hitter. Out of all of them, this is the one I think would be the mamma jamma. People would get up to watch this show. Now, at first I was picking Ratchet and Clank, but Ratchet and Clank had a movie and an animation, so I'm not going to count it. But the show, I think, it just feels like a cartoon. And it has the perfect setup, and that's Sly Cooper, the thief. I think that show would be a banger, automatically. You have your cast, they're robbing people. You have the hippo, that's the driver. You have the turtle, that's the genius. And that even goes further up to like the rivals of other criminals that they rob from. Like he's basically kind of like the Robin Hood kind of feel to it. And then being chased down by another creature. I think Sly Cooper is a raccoon, and I think
yes, raccoon is.
Yeah, and I think the cop girl is also a raccoon, or she's a fox. I forget.
Yeah, they have a kind of like a Batman Catwoman thing.
Yeah, it's almost like a Lupin the Third kind of thing.
Good comparison.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Lupin the Third, which I'm a huge Lupin the Third fan. But Sly Cooper, it would be hilarious how they pull that off. This. I think it's mainly how if they can do a clever way of how to steal something, kind of like an Ocean 11 kind of feel, and then kind of give you that surprise at the end. Like, how did they pull it off? Let me show you. And then
animated Ocean's 11.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I think it'd be awesome. And you could just picture that opening of them, like, just, them rolling down the street with the car. You're getting these quick cuts of their names and whatnot, seeing them rob and quick cuts and everything. And then it's to say Sly Cooper,
Yeah. No, I could definitely see that would make a solid cartoon. How long would that run though? Because it would be hard thinking of all these different heists.
Yeah, you're right. But then I think it would change to like, from doing heists that they want, doing heists for ransom. Like, you better do this or something will happen if you don't rob this for me. That could run probably about 50 episodes.
Okay.
They could probably run 50 episodes.
Go from stealing to protecting to, that's a lot.
And then they could spin off with some of the other characters and shine some light on them. Like, we get some backstory about the hippo. We can get a backstory about the turtles.
Yes.
The cop, backstory of why he became a thief. We can learn about who taught him, so you can get a lot of mileage out of that.
And don't forget the ever-present filler episodes for holidays, Christmas or Halloween, Thanksgiving, Easter, whatever. Yeah. In fact, for all the shows, just add another 10 episodes because plenty of room for filler.
Yep. So that would be great. And that show is brought to you by Nerf. It's Nerf or you're nobody. Because that's what it felt like when Nerf came out. Like, you almost feel weird you didn't have a Nerf of something. Because Nerf had everything from the bow and arrows to the dark guns with the rubber tops that stick. Nerf was everywhere. Nerf football. You didn't have a Nerf. The swords. Yeah, if you didn't at least have one Nerf toy in your house, that's kind of weird to me. In some sort of way. So that's why I say it's Nerf or you're nobody. So,
I was a nobody for a good while. I have more. Let's say I have more Nerf toys in my house now than I did growing up. But I wanted a Nerf sword so bad.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted a Nerf sword so bad.
Oh man, those things were
Enforce.
They were so crazy. Gosh, the disaster I put in my house. My parents probably hated the hell out of me. So much Nerf toys everywhere and everything.
The whistling football.
Oh, was it? That's more annoying now than I thought when I was little. Because it's not annoying when you're doing it, but it could be annoying if someone did it. Because like I know everybody played the universal football thing where your group of friends are far away from you and you throw up a number and whoever catches gets that many numbers. Have you ever played that? Like you yell like 5,000. Whoever catches 5,000, whoever gets to that point, that goal points win, kind of thing. Okay. Or you yell out like something that gives 0 points and no one tries to catch it. You know, that's weird that you don't know it, but I thought it'd be up there with wall ball because wall ball is universal somehow. You think you're the only one. You're like, you know wall ball? Like what? Like
every kid knows the violent games at recess.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. If you have a blue rubber ball, I don't. You got to play wall ball at one time. So anyway,
the big red rubber balls. You got to play Foursquare.
Mm-hmm. But so far on the block, you have Rockin' Cat, you have Stardew Valley, you have Shantae, you have Kid Chameleon, you have Sly Cooper. Now the 9 o'clock is the hot spot to me. It's a hot spot where everybody's up enough to like. If you woke up late, possibly you're gonna hit the 9 o'clock. That's probably the hot spot. So, what is our 9:30 show?
I'm actually going to call an audible and make a switch.
Ooh.
I am going to say 9:30 is Uncharted.
Uncharted Adventures. Oh, yes. Okay. Rocking the Sly Cooper to the Indiana Jones. Okay.
Yes. And this is where Uncharted, I mean, you have the characters, you have, the male lead, you have the sassy older mentor. You can even put Chloe Frazier. I cannot believe I can't remember his girlfriend's name.
Oh crap! I forgot to. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Sally? No, it's not Sally. Never mind.
It's like Nathan Drake and oh man, that's gonna bother me forever and ever. It's Nathan Drake, who's named after Sir Francis Drake. Elena,
that's what it is.
Elena Fisher.
Shout out to Curtis. He's probably not happy with that. Anyways, yeah.
He's like, it's Elena, damn it.
Yeah.
But I will say, I mean, you have going on various adventures. In fact, you don't even have to have the adventure confined to one episode. It could be multi-arc episodes.
Like Jackie Chan and his adventures.
Yeah. And the fact that you could have like a two-parter, because every start of a cartoon, it has to be, I mean, the start of every new cartoon, you got to have a two-parter. And then, and a three-parter. This is the one that I think could have been like Batman animated series, like with 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah, because there's always adventure.
There's so much history. You can blend history with mythology and the science in between. And not to mention, it could be a little bit educational. You can trick kids into learning stuff.
Yeah, basically the history they're stealing what it is, because that's what Uncharted did. Most of the time Nathan Drake is fascinated by the history of it. He forces on you, regardless, right? So.
Yeah. And not to mention all the cool traps and set pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the chases, everything. Now, the reason I said 9:30, there has to be gunplay.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be gunplay. Of course, you'll have to do it like G.I. Joe to where, to G.I. Joe to where nobody actually gets shot. Like he shoots the tent and the tent drapes down on guys, or he cuts the ropes and everything like that. But there has to be some form of gunplay.
Yeah. And he knows combat, so you can get some really good fight scenes.
Yes.
Especially like, in Uncharted 2, like on the train, one of the most iconic parts of that game to,
yes.
There's infinite pool of so many adventures they can do. They can even do a dedication episode to Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Even have Indiana Jones be in as a cameo in one episode.
Yeah, or he's like, he's looking for a weapon, he finds a whip, and he's like, I don't even know how to use this, and throws it aside or something. Yeah, and not to mention you have your filler episodes of, backstory for Nathan, backstory for Sully, backstory for Elena, backstory for Chloe, how they met.
Mm-hmm.
A brief period of time where Nathan and Elena are not on good terms, and Chloe flirts with him and stuff like it. There's so many episodes you could do to have fun, and
and on top of that, if the show does so successful and they do a second series of it at the end of the last Uncharted game, he has kids. Their kids can take the realm and continue on.
Yes.
So,
spoilers for those like 5 people who haven't played Uncharted 4.
Right. And so no, that's a damn good pick. I thought of that one, but at the same time I was like, I don't know, Sly Cooper just fits it better in my pick. But no, Uncharted is a good pick. I'm glad someone picked it. So now we're at the last 2 slots. And these last 2 slots to me, the 10 o'clock and the 10:30 ones. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Uncharted.
Uncharted is brought to you by what?
It's brought to you by Mousetrap, an expensive board game you only want to set up once.
Oh, man. Man.
You better not try and catch a real mouse with it.
Warning, don't let your cats near it.
Nope. Warning, don't let anyone under the age of 7 near it, because they will lose the pieces.
Mm-hmm. They'll swallow it.
Yep.
No, so thank you for that. And now we're at the last 2. Like I said, the 10 o'clock and the 10:30 slot. And it's funny, 10:30 and 10 is a weird slot because based on the Fox shows that I looked up, they have weird spots. Because Spider-Man did come later in, and then it got switched up to early in the mornings. I remember this. I remember it was at 10 o'clock at night. Then it was switched to 5 o'clock in the morning. It moved around. But this is the area where Sam and Max was at. Sam and Max was a weird show. So there was a lot of weird shows around 10 to 10:30. While you had the 8 o'clock to 9:30 as your big hitters, 10 o'clock was more like, okay, let's kind of just end it. What can we throw in here to just see what people might like or not like? So the show I have for this one is a little risky, but it has to do with kids going on an adventure, but it gets weird. And I think you have to rely on the weirdness of where this show goes and why this would fit. And that would be Earthbound by Nintendo. Earthbound, for people, that's Mother 2. But Earthbound would be... The reason I picked this, first of all, I played and beat Earthbound. That's a one-time game for me. I probably don't want to play it again. But that game does have a hell of an adventure. And if they can pull it off, it would be great. Now, I'm not trying to compare it to Avatar: The Last Airbender, but I'm going with the fact of here's a show that you gave it a chance, and the payoff was good. Remember, Avatar was on Nickelodeon, and no one thought Avatar was. Honestly, when the show came out, I didn't think it was going to get far because it was not a traditional Nicktoons show. It wasn't Angry Beavers. It wasn't Rocko's Modern Life. It wasn't Ren and Stimpy, Doug, Rugrats, the Wild Thornberries, and all that other crap. Avatar was different. It was Eastern culture. It was more of an anime than anything, right?
Yeah.
Earthbound, it would be in that category of this game has such a crazy adventure. I mean, you're this regular kid that gets visited by a bee from the future to tell you that aliens are coming to take over the world, and you have to stop it. That's freaking weird, dude. And then the bee dies by her mom. Or I forgot. Someone killed the bee because of the bug. So it's so weird. And then he has to get himself out of the town to go on this giant adventure, meeting all these other people to help him with dealing with psychic powers. You can run this show straight up 50, maybe 100 if you want to, depending how the pace you want to go. Because these kids go into so many towns and so many adventures happen in these towns and learning how he do his abilities. So much to even have the gag of a fat kid that always comes through the game as this total dick. He's basically that kid. He's basically your red herring from A Puppy Scooby-Doo. Right?
Yes.
He's this kid that's always around, always just being a jerk.
Nelson Muntz from The Simpsons.
Yeah, yes. And if people know Earthbound, you know the character I'm talking about because he becomes a big plot point at the end of it all, right?
Yes.
But he's this annoying kid that comes through. But these kids are going through these different worlds, dealing with different aliens that are coming, different ways to take over. It's more like these aliens are already kind of taking over, but they're hidden. So they have to figure that out, and they have to use their psychic abilities that, Ness just got that he didn't know. On top of you never know what his dad is, but his dad gives you just infinite allowance through a phone ATM card. Your mom is such go save the world, but call me. And that's so weird. Get
out of the house. I got to clean.
That's so weird. It's almost like he's like Freakazoid's mom. If you remember Freakazoid, her mom was just so happy-go-lucky, like, have a good time, have a good time, all
have fun storming the castle.
Yeah, and the fact that don't forget that he had a sister, by the way, sorry for Jaron. He's kind of wilding out over here with his photo right now.
I'm Max Headroom in disguise.
Yeah. I'm talking to a hologram right now. Anyways, but Earthbound has such a journey that takes you to towns of there are cults. There are towns where there's secret dimensions in between them. There's a desert where you have this giant stone monster that comes follow you around. I'm just paraphrasing a lot of stuff, but because I don't want to give away all this crazy stuff. But each cast member is so unique in their own way, from a inventor to this martial art kid Pooh that comes to join them, and they all meet by destiny to go save the world. And like Avatar, it's a show you have to give it a chance and let it unfold, or you're just not, or it's just not going to do very well. And you have to really sell these characters to be Avenger. And I think it'd be a phenomenal cartoon show. I think this would be actually, if this was a cartoon and it was given a chance, it would probably be bigger than the game. It would be, because the game became big through a cult following, not big on its own, right? And I think the cartoon would do very well. Yes, it would be very heavy animated style because this was a Japanese game, but the right dubbing and the right direction for it, it can be a very successful show in his own way. And I guess that's what I would think. I think I would love this game more as a cartoon than a video game at that point, because I'd be rooting for these heroes that they have psychic, and people love characters that have psychic abilities. They can move stuff with their minds and all that kind of stuff. It's just so cool when you're a kid. Like, I want to move stuff with my minds and everything like that, And I think it'd just be phenomenal. What's your thoughts?
They definitely would have to work on the localization a lot better in the cartoon than the game.
Yes,
because the game was rough.
Yes,
but I think it could work. Ness. Honestly, if you're gonna do Earthbound, take some liberties. Like, bring Lucas from the other Mother game. Introduce Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
Introduce a little annoying friend, like a little mini Starman or something.
Yeah,
that kind of maybe not even a friend, a frenemy. I like the idea, and you're right. If they take their time and they tell the story, and they give time for the story to breathe, and not drag though, because God forbid, but breathe. It definitely could be one of those shows that make it to syndication, i.e., 100 episodes or more.
Yeah, because this story has an open and closed story to me, and you don't have to worry about foaming it in. No filler. Really, you can have a couple of fillers,
holidays.
Well, the holidays, but also kind of like the break through such a journey. You get that one break before the next giant adventure.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
I mean, if any of you guys have seen Pokemon, you know what we're talking about. Between one arc, they have a break where they get into some weird adventure, and then you have the next arc. It's almost an anime rule.
Yeah, and there's so many weird characters in that game as enemies and stuff. That's why it's perfect for a cartoon, because it's just so weird. This game is weird. And that's the one thing that on this list that we don't have is a show that's just weird. And we accept the weird. Like Fooly Cooly. Like, Fooly Cooly was weird, but we accepted it because we gave it a chance. And it ended up being a following. Yes, 6 episodes, but phenomenal 6 episodes. And so
I mean, I think it's more challenging to have a short series than to have a 100-episode long, because you have to tell a compelling story, beginning, middle, end, in 6 episodes. You have to get people invested in the characters, invested in the plot, invested in the premise, everything in 6 episodes. Mm-hmm. So I agree. I like Fooly Cooley. Yes.
Yeah. And Earthbound is brought to you by Grape Nut Cereal. It's gravel in your mouth. Do you like your teeth? You won't like it after this. Don't eat Grape Nut Cereal.
Do you want to eat it cold? Because you can do it either way.
It's like granola that's set out for 2 years, and it just like broke into pieces, and you shoved it in the bowl with milk. It's so bad.
What's a grape nut? Don't worry about it. Just eat it.
Oh, it's so bad. It's such a bad cereal. Like, I remember my parents got that, and I'm like, why are you guys eating this? Like, this is this hurts your teeth. I don't know how you guys do it. Like, this should hurt your teeth more since you're older. Who eats grape nuts? Like, tell me the group. They must be a following somewhere. Someone likes it. I think. Yeah,
if you like grape nuts, we will laugh at you, but please let us know. I will say grape nuts is loved by 4 out of 5 dentists as well. 4 out of 5 dentists agree. Grape nuts is great. Please eat them.
You want to get rid of your wisdom tooth? Have a spoonful of that.
You get rid of your wisdom tooth one chunk at a time.
And now it's time to end this block with our 10:30 spot, and that is given to Mr. Jaron. So what do you have for us for our 10:30 spot?
All right. First off, leading up, so I don't know how many people watched back in the day. It was a show called Mutant League. It was based on the Mutant League football and hockey games. Mm-hmm. Mutant League, and those games are traditionally, they're over the top, violent, gory, but they made it work in cartoon form because they made it silly. I mean, you already had undead skeletons and robots and aliens and trolls, so they made it work. It was acceptable on TV. I think we could do that with Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, that is so interesting that you said that. Got one, because I don't know how God, it has to be the most violent show ever.
Yes, and it's clever the way. One, it's going to be one of those shows that, like Animaniacs and like Freakazoid,
Looney Tunes, right?
Yeah. The parents can get something out of it watching it, but the kids enjoy it on a different level. And it wouldn't have to follow any of the particular games, because no, that would not work. But it would take place. You would actually be an undercover. Let's say you're an Interpol agent or International Task Force agent, and he has different missions that puts him undercover in various cities, infiltrate criminal syndicates, bring stuff to justice, things like that. So that one, you have the main character who is ultimately a good guy, works for the cops, so to speak, but they have to do bad guy things for the greater good. So that's how you get the crime part going.
Yeah, and then on top of that, he has the challenge that he still has to deal with the cops because he can't reveal who he is too. So that's
exactly. And because he's part of some type of international task force or whatever, you can have him visit, San Andreas. You can have him visit Vice City, Liberty City. You can slide in Yankton, Upper Yankton. You can even, new places that haven't even been done in a Grand Theft Auto game. Mm-hmm. And you can, if you want, you can slide in little nods to the games with various characters cameoing. But, now, as far as the violence, this is where it gets interesting. We're not going to do the random, I'm just going to randomly shoot this hooker and take her money. He's any gun shooting. They'll find a way to make it to where it doesn't show where, in what direction or who he's shooting at, and people, of course, will dive behind cover. The typical cartoon crime.
So basically, just like kind of go off screen on certain shots and whatnot.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of the crimes will be robberies, heists. There'll be heists that lead up to bigger things. There's a way to put it together. I think it could be done. And not to mention, you have to have a foil. So maybe he has a friend who is into crime, kind of like 8 Ball from GTA 3, but it's a good heart. It's a good heart. He wants to get out of this life, but until then, he just keeps making car bombs. But yeah, I think that's one of those shows that I think it would get a good probably 20 episodes before some parents' TV council lobbies to have it canceled, and it ends up becoming a cult classic on DVD.
Especially if he gets in a relationship. Like if there's a relationship in this show, like he gets a girlfriend or something like that.
That's where they go into the whole, the parents know what they're talking about. It's like, she's always calling me and inviting me out for hot coffee,
Mm-hmm.
or it'll even start an episode where like it's outside of an apartment building and some innocuous sound, and she's actually eating this really delicious cheesecake, or he's eating this really delicious food, and he's like, oh my god, I can't believe you can do that. Oh, your hands are magical.
Some of these sexual innuendos.
Oh goodness.
It would be cool to see him, like how far they can push the edge, like from stealing helicopters, planes.
Yes.
You definitely making this a playground for really goofy ideas.
I mean, think about they made it work with Lego City Undercover.
Mm-hmm.
So
it almost feels like you're almost getting that borderline Saints Row involved into this idea too.
Over the top, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. I think the cartoon would be closer to how Saints Row the game is than GTA the game.
Okay.
Yeah, because Saints Row is over the top. Some things just don't even make sense. Mm-hmm. GTA is grounded closer to reality, not in it, but closer to it. And of course, all those crazy commercials, cartoons, and everything that lampoon popular culture.
So
every episode.
So would there be a lot of death in this show? I know you said there'll be like gunplay stuff, but would there be a lot of deaths during this whole season? Like,
I think they would tease it at the first episode, where maybe he's getting something at a convenience store. He's getting a bottle of milk or a bottle of soda or whatever, and he's drinking it, and he slips and falls. Boom! And a camera above him, and it just says "wasted," and but it focuses on the drink he wasted.
Okay.
So guys like, hey, you better clean that up. But most of the criminals would just be busted.
Would it be more interesting in an anthology kind of way too? Like, could you do an anthology style? Like, you have Grand Theft Auto, but you just have different various stories that happen to people doing these misdeeds, but there's like a consequence at the end of it or something like that. Would that be an idea?
I mean, that's also a possibility. I know the main message, or one of the main messages they would want to get, is that, yeah, crime happens. Hey kids, crimes do happen. They are out there, but there are these good guys that are actually trying to catch these criminals. So crime doesn't pay. The ultimate message is crime ultimately doesn't pay. I mean, it does a little bit in the beginning, but ultimately it doesn't.
That is an interesting pick, and I think that would fit at the last one because, like you know, as long as you get your X-Men, you really don't care what happens next. You're like, I'm willing to try out, or I'll stop. I'll turn the channel and move to something else. But I guess Grand Theft Auto wouldn't be the weirdest idea on there because I think that if they pull it off right, I don't think it would last long, but it'd be really interesting to see the idea they have to try to get it on there.
Yeah,
I think that's to be the more interesting. Like, what did not make it into the final cartoon, right? Like, how much did they have to cut? Because like they said, nope, that's too violent. That's too violent. Can't have that. Can't have this. Like that would be the more interesting story. We had to cut out like 20 extra minutes because this didn't work. So
I mean, if you really think about shows from the 80s, the show Cops from the 80s, the animated show Cops, had the cops start stopping all these criminals. You had Mask, you had G.I. Joe. Cobra was constantly coming up with these schemes and everything, and they clearly were the bad guys, but the misdeeds they did, they weren't like violent to other. I mean, it was violent, but it wasn't like over the top, unacceptable violence to other humans. So there is a way to depict it in a cartoon format, while still kind of giving a wink and a nod to the parent.
So, all right. Outside of your idea, if they had to pick one Grand Theft Auto game out of all of them, we're talking about the very first one. They were in London, to New York, to Vice City, to San Andreas, all that stuff. Which Grand Theft Auto game would you love to see be a cartoon?
Oh God! It is definitely a tie between Vice City and San Andreas.
Okay.
I would have to say, I'd have to say San Andreas, because there would be more that you could do in there with, you do more celebrities, do more jokes about celebrities, you could do more jokes about consumer culture. It would be if I had to choose just one location.
Yeah, it would be the only culture cartoon on here, since everything else is mainly animals. It'd be the first culture one, because this ain't gonna be no Sea Bear and Jamal kind of show, or Wayne Head. It ain't gonna be no Wayne Head. So
yeah, I mean, my last two shows in the last 2 hour blocks are main cast is human.
That's true. I think that for me, I honestly would do Vice City, just because I'm a sucker for 80s. And it's basically Scarface, the game. But 4 would be interesting with Nico. I think it's Nico.
Yeah, Nico Bellic.
Yeah, the whole coming to America kind of feel would be interesting. Just to, him adapting and all this stuff, and, with gay Tony, just to see if they can pull out homosexuality in a show. Because they always kept that well hidden in cartoons.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
I call it the Smithers method.
Yes, and that's how Mr. you would Smithers kind of think it past. It is never outright said, and there's an explanation for almost everything. There's an innocent explanation for almost everything.
Yeah. Okay, so just to recap, at 7.
And it would be brought to you by. It would be brought to you by Super Soaker, because you're nobody unless you spend at least $50 on those big backpack tank Super Soakers.
Who knew it costs a lot of money to get wet?
Mm-hmm. You got to spend money to have fun getting wet.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep. Good for you. And how many pumps does it take to squirt a gun? It takes like 10. When you were little, you feel more dangerous. Like, man, if I put even more extra pump. Like, I'll do 10 pumps. It doesn't do anything. It still shoots out the same. And it just makes you feel good. Like, 10 pumps should be enough to take care of you. Especially when you get
or those who had the big guns with the batteries that did the automatic pumping for you. You just pull the lever
those guys. I had the regular one. I had the double one, the double barrel ones. Those were cool. Yeah, man. And lots of water balloons.
Them, though.
Yeah.
You had to. I remember one time living in an apartment complex. I couldn't afford I could afford the base Super Soaker, the one tank, and obviously I knew the other folks playing they were loaded out, they were kitted out like Neo and Trinity at the end of the Matrix. So I had to make do, and I just got a bunch of cheap. They look like colored Glocks, or Desert Eagles. I had to get a bunch of cheap water guns and just have like 5 or 6 of them just hidden in various spots around my body, and I'm just and I would just toss them aside and everything like that.
You almost feel like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like dual wielding weapons.
Yeah. This was after Commando. This was when I saw Hard Boil. Both at the same time.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Okay, so to recap the whole lineup for this EGM video game cartoon block, we have Rocking Cat at 7 o'clock. Then at 7:30, we have Stardew Valley.
Yes.
Yeah, 7:30. 8 o'clock, we have Shantae, the half genie. Then 8:30, we have
Kid Chameleon.
And then 9 o'clock, we have Sly Cooper. And then 9:30, we have
Uncharted.
Then we end it with at 10 o'clock with Earthbound, followed by
Grand Theft Auto, or it'll probably just be called GTA.
GTA at 10:30. So that's our block. I would like to hear your thoughts. What cartoons what video games have never been a cartoon that you want to see as a cartoon? Let us know in the comment down below if you're watching us. And if you want to let us know through Facebook and Twitter, remember on Twitter we are at Program In, capital P, capital E, or you can look up the Endgame Bots program on there, and also on Facebook. We'll have this episode out on here. I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. It was a hell of a voyage. Love cartoons, still love cartoons this day. I actually like going back to watch those cartoons just to see, like, what did I miss when I was little? You know, I probably missed a lot of quick jab jokes that they didn't know about. But you know, I agree with the lineup. I honestly, real talk, I would enjoy this lineup. This would be very interesting. A lot of different ideas here. I'm pretty sure Rocking Cat definitely, and one of your crap, man, your 831. What's your 831? I'm sorry.
Oh, my 831 Kid Chameleon.
Kid Chameleon. I think those two shows would be the ones that would end the quickest. Like, I don't know why. I feel like because they're old school games. So like, I don't know. I think they would run their trails. I think the big hitters would be Uncharted and Sly Cooper, hands down. Followed by, honestly, Shantae. I think those are your three biggest hits right there. And so, but you know, like I said, I want to hear all our listeners' picks that you would like to say on there and whatnot. And you can always email us at the ingameoffice@gmail.com and whatnot. And, you know, this was supposed to just be a fun episode, and just hopefully you enjoy this and all the footage that we put on here that brought back memories, especially the commercials. Please enjoy the terrible commercials that we put on here and whatnot and everything. Jaron, is anything you want to add before we put our plugins and whatnot?
No, I mean, basically, if you want to reach us personally, you know,
Okay.
I'm at the Grumpy Bear 84.
Okay. And I am RetroAmp07. And also, too, if you enjoy the video coverage on here, please subscribe to the video. Subscribe to us on YouTube and enjoy all our other great content on here. We do a show called The Cabinet Session where we play arcade games. There's a show I do with Jaron called Buddy Up Gaming. You know, there's other great audio shows on here. And remember, you can find our shows on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, and whatnot. You know, the description's down below or the links. If you're on YouTube, remember the links are at the very top in the right-hand corner to take you there. If you're on Twitter, connect to our link tree. Our link tree will take you to the quicker episodes to our shows and whatnot. So Can't wait to hear from you. You know, I want to thank everybody once again. And with that, thank you for watching our Saturday Mark cartoon, and we'll be back for our regular one next time. Stage clear. Good morning.
We'll be back after these messages.